The word orgiastic, in its modern sense, probably best describes certain cults, because probably towards the end of the Hellenistic time, when a fusion of religions from various origins took place, the most important cults of this Eleusinian, Thesmophoria, Dionysia, Orphica, Cabiaria, and the mysteries for the worship of Cybele, Isis, and Sabazios. The general idea of passing beyond the limits of morality in as many directions as possible lies behind the existence and performance of the orgiastic cults. Moreover, psychological need to ritualize all possible polarities of human nature, so to not be excluded from a community, but rather belong to one, is another factor that explains the wide reception they had in antiquity. Herodotus speaks of 30,000 people attending the mysteries. The roots of many orgiastic cults are hidden in the mist of prehistory, since they developed from rural festivals that celebrated the power of nature and fertility. The notions of death and resurrection are associated with many principal figures of the mysteries, for example, Dionysus, Persephone, Adonis, Attis, Osiris, and the Mithraic bowl. The Eleusinian were a mystery cult centered around the myth and rape of Persephone, the daughter of Demeter by Hades, and the search of the mother for her daughter. The explanation of the natural phenomena and the human hope for rich agricultural production and fertility were treated in a symbolic manner. A series of purification rites took place, and although there is some uncertainty as to what went on, there are plenty of literary and archaeological sources to help us reconstruct the image of the Eleusinian Mysteries. They continued to exist throughout the Roman period until the 4th century AD, when the Emperor Theodosius abolished them. The Dionysiac cults, which had more of an orgiastic character in the modern sense of the word, included much wildness and extravagance. The cult of Dionysus had many festivals, for example, the city and the Rutal Dionysia, the Antestria, and the Oscophoria. Besides the official celebration in honor of the god, there were private celebrations that involved ecstatic worship of the god, going beyond oneself. The phenomenon, Maenadism, as described in Euripides' Bacchae, is one example of extravagant rites that, even if they are mythical, still retain the element of self-transcendence that orgiastic cults promoted. Women in a state of ecstasy abandoned their homes and joined frenzied dances on the mountain, swinging the thrice and the torches. This cult involved a sacramental meal and devouring of an animal as it was bleeding. There is evidence of orgia of this type on Mount Parnassus by women controlled by Apollo, who admitted Dionysus to Delphi and assisted the establishment of his cult in a milder form. The Orphic cult promised life after death, and it was related to the Oriental and Egyptian ideas of the afterlife. It involved many expiation rites. The worship of Cybele, the Great Mother, is the result of much religious syncretism. The orgiastic character is strongly associated with her due to the institution of the eunuch priest, the self-castrating Galloi. Eleusinian Mysteries, there is the mythic narrative corresponding to the ritual practice. Attis, the young lover of the goddess, who castrated and became her follower. Various rites were associated with the worship of Cybele, such as the Torbolia, slaughter of the bull, and the Creobolia, sacrifice of a ram. perhaps dating to the 2nd century AD, when the initiate had to be drenched in the blood of a sacrificial bull or lamb. The Cabiaria was a mystery cult that took place in Samothraki and acquired importance second only to the Eleusinian Mysteries. Ancient writers talk about the cult of the great gods in Samothrace. It is possible that the great mother of the gods, as well as Hecate and a certain Zerinthia Aphrodite, were worshipped in Samothrace. Archaeology reveals that the shrines were active until the 3rd century and possibly the 4th century, as well as Eleusis. The two important stages were those of preparation and initiation, whereas the Eleusinian Mysteries, one had to wait for at least a year between the two. In Samothrace, they had to be achieved on the same day. All the initiation rites occurred at night. The most important buildings found, Anactoron, where the initiation took place, built in the 1st century BCE. The Hiera Oikia, where all the preparations were made. The Arsinoian, built in 289 and 281 by Arsinoe, the wife of Lysimachus, a place for sacrifices and gatherings, and an actual shrine. Many votives offerings have been excavated at Eleusis, and it is possible to see the ruins of a theater. Cults associated with foreign gods, such as Mithras, Serapis, and Isis, were important in Greek religious life until late antiquity. Orgiastic cults continued to exist even after pagan times and within Christianity, and some blended into Christian ceremonies, although there was conscious opposition, particularly by the Church Fathers. After the establishment of Christianity, many of the places that were important for ancient mysteries were destroyed, as happened at Samothrace. Here's what Clement of Alexandria has to say about the Orgiastic Rites. Clement of Alexandria, Exhortation to the Greeks. But what if I were to recount the mysteries for you? I will not burlesque them as Alcibiades is said to have done, but will thoroughly lay bare, in accordance with the principle of truth, the trickery they conceal. And as for your so-called gods themselves, to whom the mystic rites belong, I will display them on stage of life, as it were, for the spectators of truth. The raving Dionysus is worshipped by Bacchants with orgies, in which they celebrate their sacred frenzy by a feast of raw flesh. Wreathed in snakes, they perform the distribution of portions of their victims, shouting the name Eva, Eva, that Eva through whom error entered the world. And a consecrated snake is the emblem of the Bacchic orgies. At any rate, according to the correct Hebrew speech, Hevia, with an aspirate, means female snake. Demeter and Persephone have come to be the subject of a mystic drama, and Eleusis celebrates with torches the rape of the daughter and the sorrowful wandering of the mother. Now it seems to me that the term orgy and mystery must be derived from the former, from the wrath, Orgia, of Demeter against Zeus, and the latter from the pollution, Missos, that took place in connection with Dionysus. But even if they are named after a certain Maius of Attica, who according to Apollodorus was killed in hunting, I make no objection. Your mysteries have received the glory of funeral honors. You may also, in another way, suppose them to be hunting stories, mytheria, since the letters correspond. For as surely as there are men who hunt wild beasts, so do legends like these hunt the rudest among the Thracians, the silliest among the Phrygians, and the demon fearers among the Greeks. A curse then upon the man who started this deception for mankind, whether it be Dardanus, who introduced the mysteries of the mother of the gods, or Iasios, who founded the Samothracian orgies and rites, or the Phrygian Midas, who learnt the artful deception from Orgiastic and then passed it on to his subjects. For I could not be beguiled by the claims of the islander Cinyras of Cyprus, who had the audacity to transfer the orgies of Aphrodite from night to day, in his ambition to deify a harlot of his own country. Others say it was Melampus, the son of Amithaon, who brought into Greece from Egypt the festivals of Demeter, who is Isis, that is, the story of her grief celebrated in the hymns. These men, I, for my part, would call originators of mischief, parents of godless legends and deadly daemon worship, seeing that they implanted the mysteries in human life to be a seed of evil and corruption. But now, in high time too, I will convict your orgies themselves of being full of deception and jugglery, and if you have been initiated, you will smile the more at least these legends you are wont to honor. I will tell openly the secret things and will not shrink from speaking of what you are not ashamed of. There is the foam-born, Cyprus-born goddess, the darling of Cinyras, Aphrodite, Venus, who received the name Philomedes because she was born from the Medea, the lustful members that were cut off from Ouranos, and after the separation did violence to the wave. See how lewd are the members from which so worthy an offspring is born. And in the rites which celebrate this pleasure of the sea as a symbol of her birth, the gift of a cake and salt and a phalos is made in those who are initiated in the art of fornication, and the initiated bring their tribute of coin to the goddess as lovers do to a mistress. The mysteries of Demeter commemorate the amorous embraces of Zeus with his mother Demeter. The wrath of Demeter, I do not know what to call for the future, mother or wife, on account of which she is said to have received the name Brimo. Also, the supplications of Zeus, the drink of bile, the tearing out the heart of the victims, and the unspeakable obscenities. The same rites are performed in honor of Attis in Cybele and the Corybantes by the Phrygians, who have spread it abroad how that Zeus tore off his testicles of a ram, and then brought and flung them into the midst of Demeter's lap, thus paying a sham penalty for his violent embrace by pretending that he had mutilated himself. If I go on further to quote the symbols of initiation into this mystery, they will, I know, move you to laughter, even though you are in no laughing humor when your rites are being exposed. I ate from the drum, I drank from the cymbal, I carried the sacred dish, I stole in the bridal chamber. Are not these symbols an outrage? Are not the mysteries a mockery? But what if I were to add the rest of the story? Demeter becomes pregnant. The maiden grows up And Zeus, who begot her, has further intercourse, this time with Persephone herself, his own daughter, after his union with her mother Demeter. Totally forgetful of his former pollution, Zeus becomes the ravisher as well as father of the maiden, meeting her under the form of a serpent, his true nature being thus revealed. At any rate, the Sabazian Mysteries, the sign given to those who are initiated, is the god over the breast. This is a serpent drawn over the breast of the votaries, a proof licentiousness of Zeus. Persephone also bears a child, which has the form of a bull. Sure, we are told by a certain mythological poet, the bull begets a snake. The snake begets a bull. On hills, the herdsman bears the mystic goad. The herdsman goad being, I think, a name for the wand which the Bacchics wreath. Would you have me also tell you the story of Persephone, gathering flowers of her basket, and how she was seized by Hades of the chasm that opened up in the earth, and of the swine of Euboleus that were swallowed up along the two deities, which is the reason given for the custom of casting swine into the sacred caverns at the festival of Thesmophoria? This is the tale which the women celebrate at their various feasts in the city: Thesmophoria, Scirophoria, Eratophoria, where in different ways they work up the tragedy of the rape of Persephone. The mysteries of Dionysus, of a perfectly savage character. He was yet a child, and the Curites were dancing around him with warlike movement when the Titans stealthily drew near. First they beguiled him with childish toys, and then these very Titans tore him to pieces, though he was but an infant. Orpheus of Thrace, the poet of the initiation, speaks of top wheel, the jointed dolls, with beauteous fruit of gold from the clear voice Hesperides. And it is worthwhile to quote the worthless symbols of this rite of yours in order to excite condemnation. Knuckle bone, the ball, the spinning top, apples, wheel, mirror, fleece. Now Athena made off with the heart of Dionysus and received the name Pallas from its palpitating. But the Titans, they who tore him to pieces, placed a cauldron upon a tripod, and casting the limbs of Dionysus into it first, boiled them down, then piercing them with the spits, they held them over Hephaestus. Later on, Zeus appeared. Perhaps since he was a god, because he smelt the steam of the flesh that it was cooking, which your gods admit they receive as their portion. He plagues the Titans with thunder and entrusts the limbs of Dionysus to his son Apollo for burial. In obedience to Zeus, Apollo carries a mutilated corpse to Parnassus and lays it to rest. If you would like a vision of the Corybontic orgies also, this is the story. Two of the Corybontes slew the third one, who was their brother, covered the head of the corpse with a purple cloak, and then wreathed it and buried it, bearing it on a brazen shield to the skirts of Mount Olympus. Here we see what the mysteries are in one word: murders and burials. By the way, Clement, that's 2 words. Anyways, back to the story. The priest of these mysteries, whom such as are interested in them call presidents of the prince's rites, add a portent to the dismal tale. They forbid wild celery root placed on the table, for they actually believe the wild celery grows out of the blood that flowed from the murdered brother. It is a similar custom, of course, that is observed by the women who celebrate the Thesmophoria. They are careful not to eat any pomegranate seeds which fall to the ground, being of the opinion that pomegranates spring from the drops of Dionysus' blood. The Corybantes from the drop are called by the name Cabieri, which proclaims the right of the Cabieri, for this is the very pair of fratricides got possession of the chest in which virilla of Dionysus were deposited. They are sojourned being exiles, and communicated their precious teaching of piety, the virilia and the chest to Tuscans for purpose of worship. For this reason, not unnaturally, some wish to call Dionysus Attis, because he was mutilated. Also, Osiris. How can we wonder if Tuscans who are the barbarians, are thus consecrated to base passions, when Athenians and the rest of Greece, I blush even to speak of it, possess that shameful tale about Demeter? It tells how Demeter, wandering through Eleusis, was in a part Attica in search of her daughter, the maiden, the virgin, becomes exhausted and sits down at a well in a deep distress. This display of grief is forbidden up to the present day to those who are initiated, lest the worshipper should seem to imitate the goddess in her sorrow. At the time, Eleusis was inhabited by aborigines whose names were the Balbo, the Dusalius, the Triptolemus, and the Eumalpus, and the Eubalius. Triptolemus, Balos, a swineherd. These were progenitors of the Eumopolide and the heralds who formed the priestly clan at Athens. But to continue, for I will not forbear to tell the rest of the story. Balbo, having received Demeter as a guest, offers her a draught of wine, a meal. She declines to take it, being unwilling to drink on account of her mourning. Balbo is deeply hurt, thinking she has been slighted, and thereupon uncovers her secret parts and exhibits them to the goddess. Demeter is pleased at the sight, and now at last receives the draught, delighted with the spectacle. These are the secret mysteries of the Athenians. These are also the subjects of Orpheus' poems. I will quote you the very lines of Orpheus, in order that you may have the originator of the mysteries as witness of their shamelessness. This said, she drew aside her robes, and showed a sight of shame. Child Iacchus was there, and laughing, plunged his hand below her breast. Then smiled the goddess in her heart, she smiled, and drank the draught that come from the glancing cup. And the formula of the Eleusinian Mysteries is as follows. I fasted, I drank the draught, I took from the chest. Having done my task, I placed it in the basket, and from the basket into the chest. Beautiful sights indeed, and fit for a goddess. Yes, such rites are meet for night and torch fires, and for the great-hearted, I should rather say empty-headed, Erechtheidae, with the rest of the Greeks as well, whom after death await such things as they expect. Against whom does Heraclitus of Ephesus utter this prophecy? Against the night roamers, magicians, Bacchants, Lenaean revelers, and devotees of the mysteries. These are the people who he threatened with the penalties that follow death. For these he prophesies the fire. For in unholy fashion they are initiated into the mysteries customary among men. These are the mysteries of the atheist. And I am right in branding as atheists men who are ignorant of the true God, but shamelessly worship a child being torn to pieces by titans, a poor grief-stricken woman, and parts of the body which a sense of shame are truly too sacred to speak of. It is twofold atheism in which they are entangled. First, the atheism of being ignorant of God, since they do not recognize the true God. And then, the second error of believing in the existence of beings that have no existence, and calling them by the name of gods, those who are not really gods, nay, more, who do not even exist. No doubt this is the reason why the apostle convicts us when he says, "And ye were strangers from the covenants of the promise, being without hope, and atheists in the world."
In one form or another, magical beliefs and rituals have always found a place in Greek tradition. Although it must be said that magic, as a distinct and easily recognizable category, one no longer readily accepted by modern scholarship. For the sake of this video, however, while acknowledging the considerable debate on the topic, it may be understood in the present context to indicate that the end of a continuously large, undifferentiated spectrum of religious thought and behavior deemed unacceptable to the dominant culture at any given period, because of the purposes for which it is employed, because of the methods and the powers it is believed to use, and because of the assumptions it makes about the nature of the cosmos.